A Cure of Wellness 2016 is the title of the film. We see a boy at the start of the movie. Lockhart is his name. He had held a position at a big financial institution. To make money, he would do everything. He receives a letter from his firm one day, where it was stated that he would have to spend a few days in Switzerland, where the CEO of their business has gone, which also has a sizable hospital. In that letter, it was also stated that the CEO of their business does not wish to return at this time. Hearing about this shocked everyone in the organization. They assign Lockhart, a worker there, with this duty: that he must travel to Switzerland and fetch his CEO back. Lockhart had now arrived in Switzerland. That he travels there and rents a vehicle, and instructs the driver to visit the health clinic. It was created in the mountains far away. Now, as they traveled there, when a man blocks their path, he tosses something at their car, which tarnished their car's glass. The driver informs Lockhart that this is standard procedure in this area. They continue to perform the rites they did 200 years ago. He arrived at the health center. As he was speaking in this manner, he walks somewhere and notices how happy everyone is. The majority of the population is between the ages of 50 and 55. Lockhart now visits the health facility and engages the front desk employee and informs him, that I've come to see the CEO, somebody came here to receive his care. But the front desk clerk informs him that you cannot meet him right now, because the designated meeting time was between 11 and 3 o'clock. Lockhart requests the nurse to allow him to meet him. I've traveled a long way, yet she won't accept. You can now meet him tomorrow, she says. Lockhart was irate at this. He now calls his business, however the call is disconnected as a result of the signals. Lockhart continues to go about the wellness center in this manner. Thereafter, he runs into a doctor, who was sipping liquid from a little bottle. Lockhart queries him over his medication. The doctor responds by stating that this is merely a vitamin supplement. That he now shares with the physician the nature of his visit. The doctor responds by allowing him time to return the next morning. Lockhart then emerged. Sat back in his vehicle before driving off to the motel. He notices a girl standing on the fort as he travels. This had a pretty odd appearance. A deer unexpectedly crossed in front of their car, which badly damaged their vehicle. Lockhart eventually recovered consciousness 3 days later. On the bed at the wellness facility, he was sleeping. On his leg was a plaster. He also notices a doctor named Vollmer sitting close. And Lockhart was also a patient of this physician. That he claims that your business, who is aware of your accident, from here, you can move on whenever you'll be fully recovered. Dr. Vollmer has a rather odd conversation with Lockhart as they travel. He claims that the water here has magical properties. Consequently, you must consume as much water as you can. So that you recover quickly. After a while, he continued to drink water. Because of this, Lockhart observes one thing while drinking water: that a tiny bug was trapped in the glass. However, he doesn't give it any thought. That he wanders around the wellness center one day, where he observes that everyone who comes here is joyful. Now, when he enters the steam room, he encounters the business's CEO, whom he came to remove from this location. He says to the CEO, I've come to take you. However, the CEO declines to accompany him. According to Lockhart, if you don't accompany me, then our business will shut down, which will be a huge loss. Now, after much persuasion, the CEO was willing to accompany Lockhart. The following day, Lockhart approaches the nurse and states, please call the car, we need to leave right away. I'll be taking the one I came for along with me. Where the nurse announces that the automobile will arrive shortly, just be patient for a bit. Lockhart now makes his way outdoors. Where he meets Hannah, a female. He had previously seen her standing on the fort, and she was the same girl. Hannah explains to him that I have lived here since I was a young child. I am aware that once a visitor enters here, he is unable to return on his own. Lockhart felt it really unusual upon hearing this. He now enters once more and begins searching for the CEO. They hadn't yet arrived there. He wasn't even in his room when he wasn't found. Lockhart then approaches Dr. Vollmer and queries, have you seen the CEO of my business anywhere? To which Vollmer responds, yes, your CEO is no longer portable. His medical care is still pending. Then blood started to come out of Lockhart's nostrils. He also falls asleep as soon as he sees. When he regains consciousness, he observes that the doctor was attending to him. He mentioned that you seem a little under the weather. Then you must receive treatment while staying here for a few days. Lockhart did not take Vollmer's statements at face value, but he prepares to remain here. When Volmer goes, he will because he still has doubts that he takes the file from his CEO. We then observe that Lockhart's medical care had begun. He was then placed in a huge water room, and a conduit for oxygen was put in place. He had to spend 30 minutes submerged. Additionally, a doctor was watching over him. However, a nurse then arrives, and that nurse keeps the doctor busy. A large number of fish had arrived at Lockhart in the water. He removes his oxygen mask as well. He was currently making an effort to exit the water. As a result, the doctor leads him outside. Lockhart informs the physician that I was assaulted by numerous fish in the water, which devours people in a hurry. The doctor predicts that this is only a hallucination for you. Lockhart was then taken to his room. He examines his CEO's file at night. However, he was unable to comprehend anything while reading this. The following day, he visits an elderly woman. They also receive care at this wellness center. Lockhart hears her say that 200 years ago, here, the king used to experiment on citizens. Additionally, the residents of this village below the mountain, they had discovered numerous bodies. They think that the king's experiments caused them to perish. The elderly woman tells Lockhart something else first. A worker arrives and accompanies the elderly woman under the guise of medical care. But prior to leaving, she informs Lockhart, this is the dark environment and world. And for that reason, nobody who visits here stays. Lockhart had suspicions already. Although he was now certain that there was a problem, the settlement below the mountains, he now decides that he'll investigate what transpired there by going there. What is happening right now? He meets Hannah along the way as well. Who rode her bicycle with him to a pub. Hannah is instructed by Lockhart to consume the alcohol. She dislikes how alcohol tastes. She then begins sipping water from a tiny bottle that is hanging around her neck. What is this? Lockhart queries of her. Hannah says the same thing as well. That the doctor explained to Lockhart at the start of the story that they are vitamins. In other words, everyone who lived here used to drink it. Lockhart left Hannah alone for a bit and proceeded to the town to hunt for a doctor. Where he only receives an animal doctor. He could only infer this information from the report that the health of your CEO is not excellent. His teeth are chipping as well. Hannah was there by herself in the pub. Some boys irritate her by approaching. Lockhart then arrived and started making an effort to save Hannah, but he was unable to effectively combat the guys. Because his leg was still covered with a plaster. Therefore, Dr. Volmer travels there. Somebody shows up to save them and they brought both back to the healing center. He was furious with Hannah alone. She left alone for that reason. While in his chamber, Lockhart noticed that he has a cracked tooth. He begins to suspect that perhaps the experience is being performed on him, potentially affect how this works. He now begins to inspect everything there. Likewise, he enters a room where the deceased were stored in the rooms. Additionally, his CEO's dead body was there. Volmer arrives there at that time and informs him that, why do you try everything? The companions of the doctor hold Lockhart and rip out his teeth with vigor. He somehow leaves this place and leaves. And commands his driver to drive the vehicle as he sits in a vehicle. Who brought him to the authorities. When he arrives, he informs the officer that the health spa was constructed on mountains. There, humans are used in the experiments. Additionally, I have witnessed numerous people's dead bodies there, including my CEO's decomposing body. The police inspector stands up when he hears this and walks out of the room. Lockhart notices that he also had a bottle of vitamins. That he recently watched with Hannah. Volmer and the CEO arrived there at that time as well. But he had seen the CEO's lifeless body. So, how did he reanimate? The police officer is informed by Volmer that the man is our mental patient. He was released to follow us. He arrived here in haste. Volmer informs him, look, you have a mental illness. Lockhart also began to have sickness-like symptoms. He has now started receiving treatment at the wellness center. He delays applying his leg plaster one day while considering anything. He was able to walk correctly. As a result, he then enters a room for experiments. Where he sees images of fish that consume people. Additionally, there was a water feature where the elderly woman's lifeless body was dumped. Who had informed him of the king in those lake. There were a lot of fish that consumed humans. Hannah feels uneasy there as well. She had also for the first time witnessed the issue in the lives of females. She had no knowledge of it, though. When she becomes perplexed, she visits Dr. Volmer, considering that Dr. Volmer cherished her as his own daughter. When Lockhart arrives, he informs everyone there that Volmer kills people while doing experiments on them. However, nobody believes him, and they move to kill him. Stating unequivocally that we are unwell. Lockhart was discovered. He is presently housed in a filtration chamber. Where Dr. Volmer says, I told you that you were sick, to the man. Additionally, the water here has magic in it. Something you cannot provide to somebody directly. Actually, the water that we saw in every person's tiny bottle, that liquid was the sweat of those who were detained here. Which they received in drops. According to Volmer, everyone lives between 60 and 70 years. However, those who reside here survive 200 to 300 years. It is the result of this water's magic. Volmer now inserts a conduit and places a fish in Lockhart's mouth. And now he begins to perspire. It is either pure water or miraculous water, as Volmer put it. There is a picture of Hannah as an adult. And she was not getting married to anyone else but Dr. Volmer, regardless of what happened to Lockhart. But he did not want to offend Hannah just now. He then enters Volmer's chamber covertly. Sees one of his books. He finds a picture there as well. How he discovered that 200 years ago, the king's legend he had heard. No one else except Dr. Volmer is he. His sister was married to Dr. Volmer. His sister was the bride. Hannah herself was one of their daughters. His wife, or Volmer's sister, passed away. On the other hand, he and his daughter Hannah lived for 200 years. Hannah had no knowledge of this. Her father is Volmer. She wasn't even open to getting married. But Volmer weds his own daughter against her will. Then used the bed to bind her up. After then, Lockhart shows up there. Who is the source of that? How on earth can you treat your own daughter like this? According to Volmer, I have been anticipating this for 200 years. Volmer says this while taking off his mask. Here, we can see his true face, which was very ominous. Lockhart now lights his lighter on fire. But Volmer was the victor in this battle. There was flames all around. With an axe, Hannah strikes Volmer in the head. Volmer, the 200-year-old king, has therefore passed away. Hannah and Lockhart also emerge. The entire hospital was ablaze. All of the patients began to dance as a result. Since their mental equilibrium had now been compromised. Lockhart escapes while Hannah is riding her bicycle. But soon after, he ran into a car. When the employees of his company arrive to fetch him up, however, he refuses to leave and opts to remain here with Hannah. Luke's face is covered in a demonic smirk. It implies that Volmer's experiment was effective somewhere. He would now spend 200 years here with Hannah, and with that, the story comes to a close.